This is a Chevy Corvette, and does it need any more introduction than that? Well, in this review, I'm going to tell you all about the C8 Corvette range, some things you really want to know, and some things you really need to know about this car. Stay tuned, there's a lot to cover. If you haven't already, please do like and subscribe. Let's get to it. At the time I'm filming this, there are 3 different versions of the Chevy Corvette available in Australia. There will be a 4th one added soon, I'll tell you about that in a sec. But the entry-level model is called the 2LT, and just like the 3LT above it, you can get it as a coupe or as a convertible if you wish to pay an extra $15,000 to drop the roof. Cool, but look, the 2LT does come with a bunch of really good standard equipment. Things like LED lights, you also get a staggered set of wheels, so 19s at the front, 20s at the back, and they're clad with Michelin Pilot Sport tyres. They're very, very good tyres. You've also got keyless entry and push button start, and on the inside, you get a lovely set of seats, and in the base spec, you also get a 12-inch digital instrument cluster, plus there's also an 8-inch touchscreen media system with Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and a bunch of really, really nice usable buttons in there. I'll show you some of those soon. And then if you step up to the 3LT model, you get an extra few features on the inside, things like leather lining across the dashboard. You also get microfiber or micro suede or whatever they want to call it across the interior as well, which does up the ambience quite a bit. Now, this particular car is a 3LT, but it has the competition seat package, so they're a little bit different, the seats in here, but no matter what, you're still getting things like heated and cooled and electrically adjustable and lumbar adjustable and bolster adjustable seats in all grades, which is really, really handy tech. Now, there's also the Z06 model, or Z06 if you're from that part of the world. Now, it adds a bunch of different things to the exterior design to give it a bit more of a racy look, and it also gets a racier spec engine, a 5.5 litre flat plane V8, so it's a little bit of a different drive experience, I'm sure. I haven't driven it, but it certainly would be a different drive experience. It's made basically to be a racing car that you can park in your driveway if you wish. And then there's the E-Ray version. Yep, a hybrid version of the Corvette. Who would have thought we'd see the day? But it doesn't go all in on hybrid. It's not a plug-in hybrid or anything like that. It's just got an electric motor at the front axle to give it all-wheel drive. And in turn, that makes it the fastest Corvette ever. So that could be one to wait for if you are considering a Corvette. It's coming later in 2024. But hey, I'm going to tell you some of the best alternatives to the current range right now. When it comes to alternatives to the Chevy Corvette, there's no other V8 mid-engined option out there for this kind of money. So what else could you consider if you are looking around this kind of cash? Well, you could be looking at the BMW M4. Now, it comes with a choice of rear-wheel drive and a manual if you want it, or all-wheel drive with the competition version. And both of the M4 models are fantastic. They're a lot of fun and also really, really powerful. No V8 though, it's got a 6-cylinder turbo petrol engine instead, but it might not necessarily matter because there's so much performance on offer there. Now, another option you might want to choose if you are thinking German is the Audi RS5. Now, I bloody love that car. I think it's one of the most appealing all-rounders when it comes to that kind of performance-oriented coupe-style vehicle. Now, it's got a 6-cylinder engine, it's got all-wheel drive as standard, and it's a fair bit cheaper than anything else that I'm going to mention in this segment. So I think that it could be a really good option for you if you're looking for something that's practical, but also beautiful, and also really, really fast and a lot of fun as well. And finally, let's talk about the Lexus LC500. Yeah, who would have thought that we'd be talking about a Japanese V8 supercar compared to a Chevy, but that's just where we are right now. The world is a weird place, and the LC500 is a bloody good car. Really, really nice to drive, gorgeous to look at and to sit inside. Maybe not as sharp a tool in terms of dynamism or anything like that, but it also has a brutal V8 under the bonnet. Which would you pick? Any of those or something else? Let me know in the comments. Let's talk about what's under the bonnet here, because there is some storage under the bonnet. I'll hit the button on the key here, and as it pops up, let's have a look. Very Lamborghini-like design language there. And you'll see that there is a decent amount of space under the bonnet, and I mean, you could fit some shopping bags in there, maybe a suitcase or your backpack for work or something like that. But it is a relatively practical car when it comes to the storage. I'll show you the back in a second, but first let's look at this new soft close finish. There we go. So that's nice. And we'll go up to the back of the car, get the key one more time here, hit this button on here, and yes, it is the coupe version, so you do get the see-through cover, so you can actually see through the glass to the engine, which is pretty cool. But let's hit this button here. Now, that's a massive boot section, I guess you'd call it, or you might call it the bonnet. But look, let's have a look at the storage. We'll get to what's happening in front of it in a second, but there's a decent amount of space there for you to fit a weekend's worth of luggage, I would say. Soft luggage will fit in pretty easily. I honestly don't know why you'd spend 15 grand more to get a convertible roof when this is what you get. A removable roof. So you can just put it in the boot when it's out of use. If you're just going for a cruise, obviously that does eat into your space significantly for boot space, but hey, would you spend 15 grand to have the convenience of an electric roof? Now, I know that usually I've put the camera on the other side of the car, but for this car, it's such a driver-centric cabin. I wanted to show you what it's like from the driver's side. So you've got a squared off steering wheel with this microfiber finish because it's the 3LT spec. That also runs up across here, around the pillars, and you've also got the leather finish on the dashboard. A few extra finishes to this car, including a carbon finish around the outside of this driver info screen, which is a 12-inch screen. You control it using this controller here on the steering wheel. You've also got volume and favorites controls down here. Your cruise controls are there, and you've also got paddle shifters here as well. So look, I think that this layout is very, very driver-centric, but what's even more driver-centric is this row of buttons that runs down here. You've got your heating and cooling for your seats, your climate control, your fan control, all the stuff that you would usually have just plonked underneath the screen. Well, it's all here instead, which is kind of neat because the passenger can still reach it as well. Now, you've got a very small touchscreen media system with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. It's a bit, well, dated looking already, but I think for the purpose of this car, it's not so much about fiddling with what's happening on your screen. It's more about going for a drive. And look, I connected my phone just for the sake of it, but I haven't actually used CarPlay while I've been driving this car at all. I've just been driving and trying to enjoy what it is. A couple of other important things that you will need to get to terms with. The gear selector is a bit weird. Push for park, pull up for drive, pull up for reverse, kind of interesting. And there's a manual mode button there as well. And speaking of modes, there's your drive mode selector here. So you pull that little dial beneath the trigger there, and you'll see up on the screen that you'll get different illustrations to show you which mode you're in. And one of the most important buttons in this car is this one right here. That's your front suspension raise button, and there's also a front camera button there as well. Now, when it comes to storage, you've got a couple of cup holders between the seats. You've also got some storage cubbies in the armrests as well, or just underneath. And in this armrest, you've also got the grip handle. You've also got a door push releaser. So it's not a proper standard door handle, it's just a release button there. And there's lock and unlock buttons down there if you're worried about getting carjacked. And you've also got a head-up display controller here as well, and your park brake is down here. Now, the park brake will automatically apply depending on the gradient that you're parked on. And between the seats, there's also a center console bin with some storage. And the seats themselves, well, like I said, this one's got the competition seats, and they're very, very hard. They hurt my bum after, well, only an hour of driving. So look, I don't think that I would necessarily pick the competition seats because I don't necessarily think that this is that much of a competition car, but you tell me in the comments. I'd love to know your thoughts, but at least they do still have all the electric adjustment that you would expect, like I mentioned, and the heating and cooling too. So yeah. And how good's the roof thing? You can just rip the roof off if you don't want to use it and put it in the boot, and that saves you 15 grand on buying the convertible instead. I think I'd just go the coupe. There are some concerning fit and finish issues here and there. Okay, let's talk about engines in the Corvette range. You've got a 6.2 litre petrol V8 non-turbocharged engine. It comes with an 8-speed dual clutch automatic transmission and it's rear wheel drive. You'll see the power and torque figures on your screen now. It is a very, very healthy amount of power and torque, but if you are looking for that race spec Z06 version, you get that flat plane crank V8. It's a smaller capacity, 5.5, with a slightly lower torque level, but it's all about revability with that engine. So it's also got an 8-speed dual clutch and it's also rear wheel drive. And then there's the E-Ray version, which adds an electric motor to the front axle, giving it all-wheel drive. There's a small capacity lithium-ion battery pack as part of that. And look, the power and torque figures for the E-Ray model really do stack up. That is a very healthy amount of grunt, and it's the fastest Corvette yet. So I think that the E-Ray might be worth waiting for if you are considering a Corvette. But hey, let's go drive this base model and see what it's like. Righto, so what's the Corvette like to drive on a daily basis? Well, the drudgery of life, well, you could do it pretty much with this car. It's pretty easy going in terms of the drivability of it. Around town, it's not too cumbersome. It is low, but it doesn't feel too low. And thankfully, you do have that button there to switch it to the nose raised mode if you need to. Now, I'll just do a little bit of urban driving so you can get a glimpse of what it's like on the daily. Yeah, lots of kids love this car. Just got plenty of little looks there from some youngsters. And raise the nose to go over this speed hump, and I can set it so that it remembers that that is somewhere where I'd like it to raise the nose. You just hit that trigger on the steering wheel, and based on your navigation location, it will save that. That's really, really handy technology, and it does take a little bit of the potential ouchie work out of this car. Okay, so what else do I like about it? Well, the ride comfort at lower speeds is mostly pretty good. It's a little bit wobbly and side-to-side movey in slow speed situations. And look, you do have a little bit of that sort of scuttle shake where you can sort of feel like things are moving a little bit because there's no roof. But look, I don't think that it's necessarily a negative in any particular way in terms of the drive experience. And also, I reckon that the ride comfort is absolutely exceptional for this type of car. Look, this is a supercar and it is super comfortable for the most part. One thing that I keep coming back to with this car, the drive experience in urban situations, even though it's got a massive V8 engine and so much performance available to you, it's kind of like a Commodore in the way that it behaves. It's just really usable around town, obviously not as practical inside or anything like that, but you know, it does have the usability, day-to-day drivability that old SS or HSV Commodore would have had, but just with, you know, 2 doors and a sporty profile and, well, much, much more grunt. But yeah, I'll get to that in a sec. Now, one thing I do want to touch on before we get to the performance driving element of this review is the fact that it's got an 8-speed dual clutch automatic transmission. So dual clutches typically can be a little bit laggy at times, and they're designed to be super snappy at higher speeds, but they're not necessarily the most refined transmission at lower speeds. But this car, I think, blends refinement and usability, and that word keeps coming up, usability. It's just a really easy to drive car in different boring situations that you might find yourself in. So let's go for a serious drive and see what it's like. Instantly, woohoo! Yeah, that's what we like to hear. And the balance, wow, really nice balance to this car. It's a mid-engine car, remember, so you've got a fair bit of weight towards the back of the vehicle, but it does seem to hang on pretty nicely in the bendy bits. Let's keep going. Ooh. That's why you don't have a roof on, so you can hear that. Yeah, right. Go around this corner. What? Oh, okay. Okay. This is supercar stuff. Woohoo! Oh my goodness. Yeah, that V8 engine is an absolute cracker. I've known that for a while, obviously, but the auto is also terrific, and the manual mode, super snappy. I really like it. Oh, whip crack! Yeah, we like to hear that. Okay, so the steering, it's quite light at the nose, unsurprisingly, but oh my goodness, the power down is just immense, and like, it's just really well balanced in the way that it behaves itself both in the corners, and as you exit, yes, you will get the tail to slip a little bit. Oh, wow. I mean, I don't know what I was expecting, but you know, it's a two-door mid-engine V8 supercar, and it bloody drives like that. Oh, it's not brutal. It's not as harsh as I was expecting it to be. It's more refined. It's more drivable. I love that. And yes, I am doing a bit of manual shifting and allowing it to do some shifting on its own as well. And exploring the reaches of the rev range. Oh my word. What a cracker. I love that you've got nice feel through the wheel as well. You can sort of judge exactly what's going to happen. You can steer it on the throttle, although it's probably beyond my skill set to steer something this good on the throttle, so. Oh. Yeah, okay. The Corvette, I get it. I hope you do too. This is a bloody good car. It's more than just a muscle machine. It is a really sharp tool. This is a supercar, and it just doesn't cost the same as some other supercars. Nice. And if you're worried about fuel consumption, you're considering the wrong car firstly, but there is no official fuel consumption number in Australia. I'll show you what I've seen during my time in this car, and you can expect to see similar if you drive it the way I have. There is no crash test rating for the Chevy Corvette, and so the crash worthiness of this car is maybe a little bit of an unknown. The crash prevention tech is also a little bit underdone. You do get a low-speed autonomous emergency braking system with pedestrian detection and a forward collision warning system, but it won't do high-speed auto braking for you if it thinks that you're going to run into something if you're going more than, say, 50 or 60 k's an hour. So it's not necessarily ahead of the times there. It's just got standard cruise control, not adaptive cruise control. But it does have things like lane keeping assistance, and there's blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert, which you really need in this car. Plus you also get a reversing camera and a front camera and parking sensors fitted to this car too. So from the livability standpoint, it's pretty good, but maybe not at the cutting edge when it comes to safety tech. And there's 4 airbags fitted to this car, dual front and front side. You don't need curtains or rear airbag coverage because it doesn't have any rear seats. 3-year, 100,000 kilometer warranty. It's like I've stepped back 20 years into the old days of Holden, but that's the case here with the GMS V product range. Just a 3-year, 100,000k warranty. Not fantastic, well behind what you get from other brands, and one of the worst warranties you can get in the Australian market today. So that might rule it out for you. If it does, I totally understand why. You do get 3 years of roadside assist included though, and when it comes to servicing, the intervals are every 12 months and 12,000 kilometers, so 1,000 k's a month. I guess that's a good way to keep it in mind. And there's no cap price servicing plan. So again, falling short when it comes to the ownership stuff. So there you have it, the Chevrolet Corvette. It's got heritage, it's got performance, it's also got a compelling price point for what is a V8 mid-engine supercar. So look, if you are looking for something like this and you aren't sure what to buy, this could be one to put on your list. It's a bloody good thing, a lot of fun. I enjoyed my time with it. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, please hit like and make sure you've subscribed to keep up to date with all of my reviews, and I'll see you in the next one.